Hello there. Once again, it's Anton from Anton Obey. Thank you for stopping by the collection room. Today, I'm looking at a few issues of Alpha Flight. I've got 9 through 12 here. I like about 4 apiece. And these are still back in the days of John Byrne cranking these out. Alpha Flight, good or bad, for some reason always holds this strange place in my heart. Maybe it's just my old school love of Canada, or the obscure hero. It always felt like that's what Alpha Flight was to me, was the obscure hero. And holy cow, we have the Thing. Thing makes an appearance. So this was the first mega series that I ever wanted to complete and collect all of. And I found all of them in quarter bins in the late 90s. Just went around, and it's how I built a lot of comic series that I really liked. Of course, I was a big Uncanny X-Men fan, but if I could get issues of Alpha Flight for 25 cents, and I was like, oh wow, these are obscure heroes, it's Canada, I love Canada. Started buying these up, and I remember I had all of them but the very last issue, which is not the last issue, but just one issue I couldn't find in the quarter bins, and turned out it was actually issue 12. I believe it was 12. Yeah. So like issue 12, and I ended up having to pay a back issue place like $4.50 for it. And I thought, that is highway robbery. $4.50 for a back issue. Oh, how good the times were back then. I still won't generally spend that on a back issue. But to complete out Alpha Flight, at the hands of Super Skrull. I like that. That's a good ending page. And I also like this. This is a tremendously great start page for a short story about Aurora. That is really cool. I love the architecture work on that. That's great. Very Cloak and Dagger-esque, very Daredevil. I like it. Anyway, so as I was saying about this being one of the big series that I collected and got a hold of, I bought it, I sold it many years ago in my early 20s to buy a wedding ring for a girl. That didn't pan out. Ended up not getting the ring and saving the cash, but I did lose my Alpha Flights. And then here recently, since I moved to New Mexico in my late 30s, ended up being able to get a bunch of collections and store inventories and stuff like that, and wound up with another full set of Alpha Flight and was thrilled. Then went through a divorce, ended up selling all that, and so this is the third set of Alpha Flights I've ever had, and I don't want to have to track them down again because I'm tired of tracking them down. This was the quickest I ever did. My buddy Scott helped me get most of these, and I picked up the rest from another large lot that I bought. I have a little bit of overlap, but not too bad. Now, honestly, if you want to get down to it, the John Byrne run of Alpha Flight is probably the best. Like, written-wise, it just is. However, I tend to kind of like the later awful issues. The ones that were just really, over-the-top hokey. You know, I like when the team disbanded and they were living in different places, and Sasquatch was white and he was also a woman, and there were so many like weird plot twists. I love the stories with the purple girl and things like that. And they're poorly written. They are like a mess, I will confess. But, you know, the first parts were really well written. My only argument with the first, 30 some issues of Alpha Flight is I know John Byrne was a good writer. He's a good creator of characters, but I just have to keep pointing out his panels are not. They're kind of boring, especially when I go and look at like Kirby panels and stuff. Like, we get a lot of panels like this. It's like, do I need 3 images of that to convey that what's going on? And then you got a whole bunch of exposition up there. And it gets to be kind of kind of a slog to read through some of it. Also, you've got 5 panels here to convey him coming home, her being in his house. Did you really need 5 panels to do that? I don't think so. But that is one thing I do like to complain about John Byrne is, all right, he's a great writer and I love his stuff, but his panels are boring. Like, how many pages have I flipped through where we're not really seeing that much go on? And this is something I kind of started thinking about, and then I got a hold of some issues of Commandy that was animated by, or drawn by, Jack Kirby. And his stuff was just riveting. This is a boring comic book page. It's just boring. Like, visually. The plot might be great, but visually it's not keeping up with it. Even though this is a great cover. Love this cover. So I don't want to rag on John Byrne's work, but some of his pages were just, they're a little, they're just lacking in the comic book excitement. Now this is a great page. I'll give him this. It's the setup for a new character and a new arc, and it's good. But it's also not extremely action-packed. And I guarantee you that, the next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 panels now since that panel. And nothing exciting has happened. This is very mundane in the life of a normal person. Some of that is great. I'm not saying that it isn't. That's some of my favorite stories. However, he tends to linger in this area for like sometimes books at a time, like issues at a time, where it's just a lot of that going on. Not that that's all terrible, but I do have to start wondering about midway through this book, is anything going to happen? Are they going to be superheroes? Or is this not a superhero book? Maybe it's just a book that's supposedly about superheroes, but it's really just like the mixed up, tragic lives of various Canadians that we know. Because like, this is Mac flying, but he's literally just flying somewhere else. He's not doing anything. Here, we get to the end of the story, and there's almost a battle to happen, but it hasn't. So literally nothing happened in this issue at all. And this is my problem with Byrne's work, because if you look through it, nothing happens. Somebody goes on an airplane ride. Heather commutes across town. They stop in and see the first box. Nothing happens. It's, I don't know. Maybe I'm complaining the wrong direction, but in the back, of course, we get these little stories of people's origins and things like that. And that's pretty cool. Definitely some crazy stuff happening in there. But I just feel like for characters I love, for the fact that you get to see all these insides of Canada and just the novelty of that it's a superhero team from another country. Some of it could be a little more exciting. So even though some of the later stuff was written terribly, I do appreciate it because, even badly written, it was a little more exciting. And one shall surely die. Shall they? I don't know if we even know. I'm trying to think if there is even a battle, because we were setting up for a battle in the last issue, and we're still not there. And so many of their villains are, absolutely awful. Like, they suffer so much, they're imprisoned, or like that guy who hung himself and didn't die, and that's how he became a villain. All right, well, at least we're getting some sort of little fight here, some action. And believe me, I'm not like an action hound or anything, but when you have this many crazy Canadian superheroes, you have this much opportunity for all of it, to not go full tilt and go full weird just seems like a waste. And I feel like that's what we end up doing a lot with Alpha Flight, is we sit on the cusp of mass weirdness and greatness, and we don't pull the trigger. We don't pull the weird trigger. And as far as teams that fight amongst themselves, you thought the X-Men were bad. These guys fight amongst themselves like argumentatively and scrapping and stuff a lot. I remember thinking, man, these guys fight each other more than they fight any supervillains or anyone at all. We're finally getting some action here of what you expect from a comic about halfway through, and it's been 2 or 3 issues since we've seen any real action. We're getting a fight. And it's not that Byrne can't do a good action scene. He does. It's just, he just doesn't do them often enough, it seems. Gamma Flight was always pretty interesting. I think some of the best characters came from Gamma Flight. So. I remember this robot lady, but not that great. Okay, so I remember how Mac dies here. And it's kind of horrific. He explodes and burns into a pile right in front of his new bride, which is tragic. But then we learn, like, later, you know, that he didn't really die, and he was abducted by aliens, and they combined him back with his suit, and it's terrible. They never, ever dealt with the death of Mac Hudson very good. And I always thought that was, like, one of the biggest downfalls of Alpha Flight was the way they kept bringing Guardian back and botching it instead of just leaving it alone. Anyway, I know I was maybe a little bit down on Alpha Flight this series, this video, but I do love the series. Like, I seriously do. I didn't track down all 130 issues 3 times now because I didn't like the series. But I certainly recognize some of the series' flaws. And some of them come straight from the guy who created them and was one of the best writers that they ever had. It was just the slow pacing and boring art scene of what should have been a very wild, zany team of Canadian superheroes. That's what was going on. That's what comics are for. And if you want, like, the home style life and commutes back and forth and emotional politics of all that stuff, that there's a lot of that in here, probably too much for what should be a superhero book. Anyway, that's just my thoughts, and that's my story. I appreciate you guys watching. Go check out and read yourself some Alpha Flight. And I'll catch you guys in the next video. Bye.